I'm going to start off this question, and I was thinking about as we went through it, how do I bring up UH? And I'll just ask you it this way. Are you proud to be a UH graduate?
I am definitely proud to be a UH graduate. I actually have run the whole gamut of the University of Hawaii system. I started at Leeward Community College as a high school senior in the early admit program. So I enjoyed my time at Leeward. It was great to be on the campus as a senior in high school. I then enrolled at the University of Hawaii and got my bachelor's of engineering at the University of Hawaii. At the time that I graduated, it was heavily recruited. So it was very clear, if you assume that the fact that companies wanted to hire engineering graduates from the University of Hawaii, clearly the program is successful and does very well. I then, during my time working at Hawaiian Telephone, I did enroll in the Master's of Business Administration program, and so I do have an MBA from the College of Business in Decision Sciences. So I do have a graduate degree and have been a participant as part of that program as well. So I am definitely proud of the fact that I'm a University of Hawaii graduate.
Well, even though you didn't get the UHPA endorsement, I'm sure they will be happy to hear that. But you know the problems. There's a repair and maintenance backlog that I believe is about $500 million. Manoa, right there at the top, having all sorts of problems. The search for the university president, the tenure of Marcy Greenwood was very controversial, sort of an ugly battle in which your colleagues in the Senate were directly involved. There has been a lot of concern that UH's reputation is declining, that we are not as great an institution as we could be, the single largest, most important institution of higher learning in the state of Hawaii. What are you going to do to bring that reputation back and help with the facilities that need all this work?
We did, it's always a challenge, I think, from the legislative perspective, and it is a challenge from the governor's perspective about what the relationship should be with the university. As when I chaired the Committee on Higher Education, and we tried to legislate different activities, we would always get chastised by the accreditation organizations that the legislature shouldn't be directing, the legislature shouldn't be involved. So, it's a delicate balance about what should the role of the legislature be, what should the role of the governor should be in the University of Hawaii. But let me just say, I do believe that the University of Hawaii is one of the most important institutions in our community. And it is for a lot of reasons. It produces the most teachers that fuel our public schools. It provides the impetus for innovation in our community, for the next generation of businesses. It provides the nurses that will hopefully take care of our elderly so that we can age in a way that is consistent with our beliefs and our cultural. So it is significant. It's a very important institution in our community.
Has the legislature been too critical in its oversight of the legislature? The term micromanaging has been brought up. Donna Kim on the Senate side, Isaac Choi on the House side. The governor, as you well know, is a graduate of UH, cites his experience there as being formative there. Should the legislature back off a little bit and let the University of Hawaii run itself?
I think it's a couple things, and I've been very involved with providing the university more flexibility. So when I was chair in the House, we did enact a whole bunch of series of legislation that gave them more fiscal autonomy. They had flexibility. They got released from the allotment process. A lot of nuts and bolts that allows them to be more accountable for the spending. I think, and as I look at the progress of the university, I think that in the last 2 years, the Senate has been very aggressive in reminding. So what we did is we delegated to the regents a lot more responsibility that used to rest with the legislature. We went from line item budget, so we would review every single request to give them lump sum budgeting. We delegated to the regents the ability to hire the university president and the rest of the executive management team. We delegated to the regents the ability to set salaries so it could be competitive so that they could get quality people. And then we let them run with it for about 10 years. I'm convinced at this point, and we have over the last couple of years reminded the regions that that delegation to the regions was a responsibility that went beyond the typical region. They became the representatives of the people. And it became their job to make sure that the dollars were spent appropriately, that we did the best that we could to hire the best personnel that we could find, and set appropriate salaries and set fiscal priorities. And I've been disappointed in the performance of the regions, but I would say this, in the last 2 years, we've made it clear, and I think the regions have heard loud and clear, that they have a broader responsibility than just rubber stamping what the president and the executive team at the university is asking for. And I think that they have been asking harder questions. And let me just get back to one thing you talked about, the maintenance backlog.
Thank you.
You know, 2 years ago, from Ways and Means Committee, I requested and put a budget proviso asking the university to address the backlog of maintenance throughout the system. And you know, let's just be clear that the backlog really is at the Manoa campus. Most of the other campuses have done a decent job of keeping the facilities in good shape. I think 85% of the backlog is really at Manoa. So the Senate insisted that they put together a plan to deal with the maintenance backlogs. So the report that the university came back, the executive team came back to the legislature on the first time we asked was, give us $500 million in GO bonds and we'll take care of the problem. Obviously, that's not a solution that is tenable, especially when that's the entire CIP budget, probably for a couple years. So they did come back, so we went back and said, please, that's the wrong answer. And for the first time, they did take the question more seriously the second time. Obviously, we had a whole bunch of budget provisos that directed them to take it more seriously. And they did come back at least with a better plan this session. They talked about committing tuition. And you know, that's kind of a double-edged sword about using student tuition to pay for a part of it. But I don't think there's a more direct benefit for tuition if the facilities were in better shape.
Okay, last question about UH. There's a bill that your legislature passed requiring Board of Regents to make public their financial disclosures. Right now, that information is kept private with, I believe, the Ethics Commission. That bill is on the governor's desk. Should he sign that bill into law?
I voted to support it. You know, I do believe that as a public institution, it's important. We've delegated a lot of authority to the regions. They are making decisions about contracts. They are making a lot of decisions that I think the legislature used to make. And the legislature is required to provide public disclosure of information. I think regions should do the same.
Okay. Some of them are saying they're going to quit if that happens.
Well, you know what? That just means we need to broaden the search and find different regions. I mean, you know what? I respect anyone's right to privacy, and if people really believe that they don't want to share that information, I think that they're entitled to. But then they shouldn't be entitled to sit as regents, you know.